For the last 3 weeks, I've been banging my head against the wall. Yeah, for 3 weeks straight because of this video. I started to regret my decision to make this video the first day I started researching it. The first day. Aside from books, I tend to be the type of person that has to finish something they started, which I'm now starting to realize might sometimes be a character flaw. I knew this topic was going to be a complex one to cover, but I did not realize the extent of it. Now, I spent about 2 days just staring at a blank Google Doc trying to figure out how the fuck I was going to make this into a simple, concise video for you. It's a miracle I'm standing here today. So, I truly hope my sentences are coherent and that you enjoy watching me answer the question, are octopuses really aliens? As always, let's get the general information out of the way. By starting with our beloved cladogram, which represents how big groups of animals called phyla are related to each other. Octopuses belong to the phylum Mollusca, which, by the way, there are multiple plural forms of octopus. Octopi, octopuses, octopodes. I like octopuses the best. Some other animals in the phylum Mollusca that you might be familiar with are snails, slugs, clams, oysters,
wait for it,
squid, and cuttlefish. If you think about the animals I just listed, you can group them into 3 categories based on what the fuck they got going on. The snails and slugs. Same shape, really only differentiated by a shell or lack thereof. Those are the gastropods. Then you got the 2-shell variety, the clams and oysters, mussels as well. Those are the bivalves. And then you got the ones with the big ass heads, the squid, cuttlefish, and our animal today, the octopus. They are the intelligent, highly esteemed cephalopods. Cephalopods are considered the most intelligent invertebrates that we know of. Like all intelligent creatures, including us, this is due to a variety of factors, with the most prominent factor being the big brain. At first glance, you might think that octopuses keep all their brain up in their head looking area. They do have part of their brain there, but not all of it, because they have what's called a decentralized brain. So you know how all of our brain is up here, like we have multiple lobes and all of them are up here? That's centralized. Octopuses have multiple lobes as well, but just spread out. So their central brain is where you'd expect it, in the head, but they also have side brain lobes that kind of extend out into their arms. Not significantly, like not all the way out to the tips, because that is the opposite of evolutionarily beneficial. They get their arms chomped off frequently. They're more at the base of the arms, but enough of the way into the arms to say that they have brains in their arms. Each brain lobe has a different function. The central brain in the head is for their central organs, which are also in their head area, by the way. If you're ever bored or under the influence of marijuana, I recommend looking up diagrams of the anatomy of different invertebrate creatures, because that shit is unusual. And their side brains operate their heart and the nerves into their arms. Operating these arm neurons is not a small task. Octopuses have about 500 million neurons, with 2/3 of them being in their arms. So, the benefit to having this decentralized brain is that it allows the octopus to have rapid fire nervous system reactions to environmental cues. The side brains can make decisions without having to consult the central brain, and the side brains can even consult other side brains. You can think about this with their famous color and texture changing abilities, which allows them to pretty much instantaneously blend in with their environment. Their chromatophores, their color changing cells, as you should know, are controlled by their nervous system, so everything's just fucking rapid fire. Blending in is not all this elongated brain is used for, though, as I'm sure you're aware. Octopuses can problem solve. Think of the videos of them opening jars from the inside out, or the many examples in my octopus teacher of the octopus escaping predators. They've also demonstrated an ability to plan ahead, taking objects to hide in when moving to a new area, just in case they can't find a place to hide there. There are even videos of them, what appears to be dreaming, changing color as if they are blending in to the core, or whatever the fuck octopuses dream about. And what's insane is that all of these qualities evolved in a group so distantly related from all the other intelligent groups, i.e. birds and mammals, impacted by completely different environmental conditions over hundreds of millions of years. So while we can look at them and say, hey, they dream just like we do. Do they? They solve problems and plan ahead just like we do. Do they? Do they really? Their way of experiencing life as an intelligent being must be completely incomprehensible to us. It must be, because it evolved in an entirely different way. Anyway, that was kind of a philosophical tangent. One of the most interesting parts of this level of intelligence is that there's no information passed from parents to offspring, a characteristic that typically benefits all intelligent species. Think of cheetahs learning to hunt from their moms, or whales and elephants in their little family units. And of course us. We owe everything to what other humans have taught us. That is not the case for the octopus. Apart from their instinctual behaviors, they have to learn all their survival skills on their own. And this is because of a mechanism that impacts their life history. Octopus mothers, for some reason, evolved to expel all their energy protecting their eggs until they hatch, rather than using that energy to pass on knowledge. So the mother's death is timed exactly to when the eggs hatch, which if you think about for too long, will make you cry. But we're not gonna do that today. Oh my God, I just forgot why I made this video in the first place. I didn't even talk about my tattoo. I have a fucking octopus tattoo. That's why I made this video. Okay, all of these unbelievable octopus qualities combined have led a lot of people to jokingly say, well, maybe they're aliens. Aha. And in 2015, a paper was published that took this joke seriously, incorporating the idea that octopuses might have come from outer space as a talking point in a very controversial paper about the origins of life on Earth. Yeah. Now you might be like, oh, we're getting into origin of life shit today? Fuck. Yeah. Listen, disclaimer. I try to avoid this as much as possible because the thing about origin of life studies is it's generally a shit ton of chemistry, which we all know I don't fuck with. So we're really only going to focus on the octopus portion of the paper. I figured it was big enough to make a lasting impact on the internet, so it's big enough to make a video about. I'm going to give you enough information to know the context that the octopus was brought up in, but kind of like we're on a double-decker tour bus with a tight schedule, and I, the tour guide, am giving a very brief description of a couple different things because then we got to dip. So, origin of life is arguably one of the most controversial fields of study in science. There are plenty of examples of scientists yelling at each other about it, which, yes, I'll plug one at the end of this video. But there's one idea that a good majority of the scientific community has reached a consensus on: abiogenesis. Abiogenesis. The idea that life originated from non-living matter. And not like overnight, not like magic. More like the perfect conditions allowed simple molecular structures to become more and more complex over a very long period of time. Snowball, more and more complex, until eventually the earliest forms of simple, self-replicating structures appeared. And so, okay. That's a really shitty 10-second description of a process that took hundreds of millions, if not a billion years. But scientists have done lots of experiments and tests that support abiogenesis, so are we getting somewhere? It sure seems so. But the authors of this paper would disagree. A team of about 30 scientists from all different fields came together to reintroduce another idea about the origin of life: panspermia. The, again, controversial idea that life did not originate on Earth, but actually came from somewhere else in the universe. Hitched a ride on a meteorite from a different planet, crashed into ours, somehow survived, and seeded Earth with life, kind of creating an intergalactic highway with life bouncing around different planets. The reason why this idea is so controversial is because, as many other scientists have pointed out, there's no evidence for it. Their talking points are pretty vague, or can be explained by other mechanisms or processes or whatnot. It's just extremely speculative. Okay. Hopefully that's enough context because I kind of fell into a panspermia rabbit hole while researching for this video. And honestly, I went pretty off track for a little bit. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to reel this back in for an octopus video? And like I said, stared at a blank Google Doc for 2 days. And then, as luck would have it, I met someone in a bar who studies evolution and has a friend who has a PhD in octopuses. That's networking 101, bitch. I was able to get in contact with her and have a conversation about octopuses. It was fantastic. Her name is Kelly Voss. She's an octopus behaviorist and morphologist that spent her master's studying the consistencies of giant Pacific octopus behavior, whether or not they have personalities. They do. And spent her PhD essentially answering the question, why the fuck do they need so many arms? She totally helped me recenter the purpose of this video, and I was able to get her thoughts on the paper, which I will share with you in a little bit. And yes, we are friends now. Okay, I think we're ready to get into the meat of this paper. The main idea that the authors proposed in this paper is that life not only got to Earth via comets, but also that organisms on Earth have been continuously affected by these life-bearing comets plummeting into the Earth over the last 500 million years, that maybe carried viruses on them that infected and completely transforms their evolutionary path, causing them to evolve specific traits very quickly. And if true, they wrote, then the octopus is a perfect example of intelligence evolving from an extraterrestrial source. They claim that the qualities of the octopus that I just mentioned, their large brain, instantaneous camouflage, etc., appeared suddenly on the evolutionary scene about 270 million years ago, and seemed to have no other origin. They said, and I quote, "It is plausible then to suggest they seem to be borrowed from a far distant future in terms of terrestrial evolution, or more realistically from the cosmos at large." And they refer to figure 5, which is this. Just take it all in for a second. So, they propose 2 scenarios. The first, an extraterrestrial virus infected a population of squid with a whole swarm of genes that transform them into the octopus, i.e. figure 5. Or a shit ton of cryopreserved, or frozen, octopus eggs soft landed on Earth 275 million years ago. Let me just reiterate, there is no evidence to support these claims at all. And there are a lot of pieces missing from the bigger picture they're proposing. And so, as you would imagine, the rest of the scientific community has had some words.
I just want to talk to him.
One virologist named Ken Stedman brought up the fact that viruses evolved to infect specific hosts. So, first off, in order for a virus from a different planet to infect a population of squid on this planet, the planet it evolved on must have already had a shit ton of squid on it. And then on top of all of that, the virus made it to another planet with a shit ton of squids on it. What are the chances of that?
Never tell me the odds.
Unless there's squids all over the universe, I'd say pretty slim. He also referenced some genetic evidence that suggests the nervous system genes between the octopus and squid only split about 175 million years ago, which doesn't add up with this 275 million year ago timeline. Another scientist named Keith Baberstock talked about the fact there are plenty of organisms that have traits that seem to have no traceable origin. It's a pretty widespread phenomenon. There are other well-established Earth-based explanations to explain why these came to be. No need to look to the cosmos for answers. And the octopus scientist I spoke to, Kelly Voss, pointed out that our understanding of octopus evolution is incredibly fragmented because of how difficult it is for soft-bodied animals to fossilize. That has to be taken into account as well. And actually, since this paper has been posted, in 2021, a fossil of an octopus ancestor was found and dated to be about 330 million years old, which pushes back the octopus evolution timeline by about 50 million years. Kelly also mentioned that octopuses are extremely sensitive to even temperature changes in their environment. So she thinks they're not a good example of a species that could potentially survive a trip from a different planet. Because think about it, okay? Let's imagine frozen octopus eggs in a comet. They would have to survive whatever launched them into outer space in the first place. Then the trip from one planet to the next, which is at least a few thousand years. At least. And then they'd have to survive the crash landing onto the next planet. I think it goes without saying the odds would be stacked against them. Another virologist named Karen Molling said, to call this idea plausible, as they did, is not really valid. They didn't really provide any evidence, or there was no smoking gun, as Keith Baberstock pointed out. All of the evidence they provided have other earthly explanations. In other words, the extraordinary claims do not have the extraordinary evidence. You know those hot takes that people do on TikTok where they essentially are like, I might get some hate for saying this, but, and then they say the most heinous shit you've ever heard in your entire life. And then every single comment in the comment section is, you need therapy. That's essentially what we got going on with this paper. The bottom line is, most of the scientists who had something to say about this paper all agree that life coming from outer space would be fucking sick, but it doesn't really benefit anyone at this point to consider it a possible theory on the origin of life based on our current scientific understanding. The main problem with any ideas related to panspermia is that it moves the question of where life came from elsewhere, with no definitive evidence to do so. So it's just not helpful in the larger discussion of figuring out where life came from. By moving it to another planet in our galaxy, or even just beyond somewhere else in the universe, it puts the question essentially off limits. Because like, what the fuck are we gonna do about that? Like, oh, okay, life came from a different planet, cool. Well, we're gonna fuck off now then. We can't do shit with that now. I imagine you might have a lingering question after going through all these responses that essentially call this paper invalid. How did this get published in a scientific journal? And I talked to Kelly about this too. So getting a paper in a journal is kind of like getting a TV show on a network. They get shopped around to different journals. Kelly imagines that it probably got rejected by an understandable amount of journals. Maybe they just happened to find one that was down to stir up a bit of chaos. So while we can hope that one day we find evidence of other intelligent species and are even connected to them through a whole other level of evolution through an intergalactic highway, it can only stay in our imaginations for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you're interested in going down an origin of life rabbit hole, specifically if you want to hear scientists yelling at each other about it, Professor Dave recently uploaded a debate with a professor at Rice University about the origin of life. Lots of chemistry.
Amino acids polymerize to yield peptides.
Lots of chemistry.
Alanine, phenylalanine, alanine, phenylalanine, serine, phenylalanine.
But it got really heated, and it was fun to watch.
Zero! You understand?
At one point, some people in the audience were booing him, and Dave was like,
As though you people have any fucking clue what any of us are talking about.
which Dave I thought was really funny. I was laughing until I realized I had no right to, because I didn't know what the fuck you were talking about either. But I'll put it in the description if you want to check that out. Next week, I'm gonna keep it much simpler and do a little rundown on some animals I think that you will like. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. Check out my Patreon if you want to see more updates during the week, see what's going on. We do some live streams, and you can keep up with my short form content on TikTok and Instagram. And for now, stay curious. The world has a lot for us to learn. See ya!
Show us the data!